Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. To explain what we do, we both review 7 different home video titles, and we let you know if they're kind of worth your getting or not. So with that, we're going to jump right in to my first title, which is one that I was kind of intrigued about because I'd never even heard of before, and that's called Twilight, but not the vampire Twilight.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is from Kino Studio Classics, and we got a really sweet slipcover here. And so there's no reversible art, but here's the disc. And yeah, so the cover kind of says it all, really. This is definitely a neo-noir. And we got Paul Newman. Paul Newman's going to make another appearance later in the show, just to tease that. But
Is it
yeah,
a salad dressing? Is that what we're talking about?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
I'm gonna have a huge, no, I'm gonna have a gallon of the dressing.
Okay, thank goodness. Yes.
Not to get on a side tangent, but for the longest time I didn't realize that he did that for charity.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, so this is definitely a late in his career film, and as I said, it's a interesting neo-noir. There's a lot of great twists and turns. I really liked it. I think the pacing is a little bit of an issue. And it's hard, like the finale kind of doesn't work, but it's hard to say because I don't want to give away the twist ending. This cast is incredible. We got, of course, Paul Newman, but then we have Susan Sarandon, Gene Hackman. We got James Gardner, which is a really big favorite of mine. Fans of like classic movies will like know a lot of his work, but yeah, so it's really fun to see Paul Newman act with James Gardner and Gene Hackman, and they all just kind of play off each other really well. And this definitely has what many people would consider like a typical noir soundtrack. It's very jazzy. It's got that like very ultra cool, even though I think technically like American noir never was very jazzy. That's just sort of like a more of a later noir thing. I'm not a scholar, but that's what my understanding of it is. But yeah, it's a great film. Like I said, pacing's a little wonky, and I appreciate what they did in the finale, but I don't know if it totally worked. But it was a really fun time. This looks really great. It doesn't say if it comes from a new master, but it looks really nice. It's again 1998. And you do get like a really nice, crisp, clean, clear looking picture. No artifacts, no scratches. This isn't a particularly colorful movie, but the colors do that are there pop really nicely. So yeah, overall they did a really nice job. The commentary was a lot of fun to listen to. It was definitely worth going back and watching it. And it does like what any really good commentary does. It kind of made me appreciate the movie a little bit more on second viewing. So overall, this is a really interesting film. Again, not what I think of when I think of Twilight, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I actually conveniently I watched this one for the first time earlier this year, not knowing this was
Mm,
coming because I've been waiting for years because someone you didn't mention who's in the movie is Reese Witherspoon, like in
yeah.
one of her early roles. And my wife is a huge Reese Witherspoon fan, so we finally got around to watching that earlier this year. and we were a bit mixed on it, to be honest. But I'm looking forward to revisiting it now because I watched it off like a cable channel. It was like all like artifacty and compression-y and all that stuff. So I want to see how this new disc looks. I'm excited. Like I was more positive on it than my wife was, but I even though it's a brief role, I appreciated Reese in it for what like her role intends. But everyone else, but like is of course like Gene Hackman, James Garner, Paul Newman, like all of them together is what really you go there for, and I think they do a really good job.
Yeah, and what's funny about Reese Witherspoon's character is, she shoots Paul Newman. Um, it may or may not be in a very private place. I won't spoil it, but that
Yeah,
is kind of played up for pretty good humor. Yeah, I liked it. Again, it wasn't perfect, and I like I said, the ending kind of didn't work, but like that final showdown with Newman and Gardner was mwah. Like that whole
yeah,
sequence was really great. I want to keep it super vague because I don't want to spoil it, but I think it's worth checking out.
absolutely. Heading into my first title is one I'm very excited about. This is a movie I first watched a couple years after the hype train. That is Train to Busan
Mm,
from Welgo USA, coming new to 4K. If I'm not mistaken, this came out in 2016. I did
mm.
not watch it till 2020, whenever the sequel was coming out, which I reviewed for Geek Vibes Nation. Um, and I'd heard all the hype. I'd heard everyone lose their minds over this whenever it first came out, and I have to say it lived up to it. I This is probably rocketed up to probably like top 10 like zombie movies for me, zombie virus, whatever you want to call it. This was a ton of fun. Just it's a Korean movie. It's very simple premise. There's like a um, zombie outbreak. There's a father-daughter tale at the core of it. They are going on a day trip on a train where the virus starts breaking out, and they just trying to survive on a train. So zombies on a train, not snakes on a plane. Just and it's a really good use of tension because it doesn't always stick completely on the train. Like there are stops at other stations where insanity breaks out and everything, but it's just a really like expertly paced, well told zombie film. You get to learn all about these, like you get invested in these different characters. It's like you don't get like a ton of time with them, but you get enough time to get kind of invested with each person, and you hope that they don't die because there are a lot of likable characters in this. There are a lot of unlikable characters as well, and you want to see them get their comeuppance. But as a zombie film, it's very just like expertly paced. There's like pretty much no fat on this. Like even when there's like a little bit of sentimentality, it's just going to like the overall like emotional investment in the film, which I really appreciated. There's some like really good practical effects. There's a lot of like digital effects, of course, but those are really handled like really well. They blend pretty seamlessly in with the real world stuff. There's a few dodgy moments here and there, but effects wise it's really good. But mostly I just get invested for the emotional aspects and just like the zombie carnage. It's fun. Like it's just a really, there's some moments in here where they're like trying to just like covertly get around some zombies in really creative ways, which just like had me gripping my seat. And this rewatch, like I knew what happened and it still got me. Like I was just like, dear Lord, I hope this works out. This works out. But yeah, this film, it looks really nice on 4K. The first time I watched it was streaming. This time I got to watch it on 4K and it looked a lot better. Doing a quick check between the included Blu-ray in here as well. It looked like it is an improvement over the previous Blu-ray. This does have Dolby Atmos audio, so it's a very immersive audio experience, which especially with like a fast-paced zombie film, that's really like key to like just kind of the atmosphere and everything. It's very effective. There's not that many special features. There's about like 20 or 18 minutes of featurettes. Like there's two featurettes that add up to about 18 minutes, and then like a trailer. So you get kind of like some brief on-set footage, but nothing that's like super substantial. I would have loved to see like a commentary on this just to kind of get some background, even if it was just from a film historian. But as a film, this is one of my favorite like zombie movies. So I was glad to finally have a chance to own this. The 4K is great if you're a fan. I recommend it. Train to Busan. It is so much fun.
Yeah, that's one that I actually discovered a little bit late in the game. They were showcasing it on Joe Bob's show, and that's when I finally saw it. And yeah, it's good. It's one of those, like, if it doesn't move you in some way, I don't know what to tell you. You might be
Yeah,
dead inside.
just melt your
um,
cold black heart.
right? Um, so my next one is one that I was really intrigued by when they announced that this was going to be a thing. And that is The Offer, which is the making of The Godfather. So I want to mention right off the bat that correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a Blu-ray version of this as well.
That's correct. Yes.
So here are the features, and so I mean, this isn't my favorite setup for discs, but I like this better than just like the gatefold style is in theory good, but it's very delicate. So, but
Yeah.
that's the setup for these. Yeah. So this shows a mixed. This series is a mixed bag for me. So I'm a huge fan of The Godfather. I know a lot about Robert Evans. They had a wonderful documentary that I believe Kino put out not too long ago called "The Kid Stays in the Picture," which is all about Robert Evans, and is a fantastic documentary that you all should check out. But anyways, um, so yeah, this is a mixed bag, like I said. This is a series that I think would have worked perfectly as maybe like 3 hours total, maybe split up into 3 episodes. But it stretches on far too long. And the problem is we've seen The Godfather. We know what happens. Like they try to inject a lot of tension, right? Like, will they be able to get Al Pacino, who signed on to another movie? Like, do they get permits to shoot at very famous locations? Like, yes, we know that. We've seen the movie. We know the final result. So, we kind of know the outcome, which is fine, but like it sort of like stretches all of this stuff out. And I think it is a little bit too self-indulgent. This definitely is playing up to like huge film buffs. And I like the little like references and like Easter eggs with other films. I eat that stuff up, but at the end of the day, I think it kind of holds it back. I think it just becomes a little bit too overstuffed. The performances are fantastic though. Like I'm trying to think of the guy that plays Robert Evans. He crushes it. He really I'm gonna look this up really quick. But yeah, everybody really I think looks the part. The guy that they have playing Mario Puzo is great. Matthew Good is playing Robert Evans, and
I love
I mean,
Matthew Good.
yeah, looks like him, sounds like him. I mean, it's like he has that swagger that Evans had. I mean, he just nails it. So I think like the real joy of this is the cast and just seeing how they really bring these characters to life. I just wish it would have been better paced. I wish it would have been a little bit more concise with its storytelling. Like I said, this easily could have been like a 3 hour mini series or even just like a 2-ish hour movie even. But um yeah, it's fine. Again, I hate to bag on it too much because it does have, again, really great cast, great production design. I mean, I think like they really nail the time and place. It's just, again, it's just a little too bloated. But Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested in that when it debuted on Paramount Plus earlier this year, but I just never got. I didn't have Paramount Plus at the time. I was like, I'll get around to it, and now is the time. I will get to it. I will be lowered expectations now because of your review, but I do want to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and again, it's like it's fine. It's just one of those things that like I took like an entire 2 days to just binge the entire thing, and it was like well worth it, but I was just so burnt out on like all of it because it was just a lot. So
You're just like, do I hate The Godfather now? Heading into my next film, I was very. This is one that appeals especially to us because we're huge film buffs, and I assume that anyone that takes time to watch us for an hour to an hour and a half each week is probably the same. So this is for you. This is from Music Box Films, and this is The Story of Film: A New Generation, which is a new documentary. It is a sequel, a rare documentary sequel, which I haven't actually seen the first film, but once I tell you what this is actually about, I think you'll understand. So from my understanding of the first film, this filmmaker kind of did like the biggest deep dive into like film that had been created up until the point it was made. So it's just like a huge dissection of just like every decade and aspect of like American cinema, world cinema, any cinema is just like a huge documentary about cinema. This is the same, but it's a sequel that's like the films that have come since then. So this focuses on like 2010 to 2021. And this is a massive documentary. Like you don't usually think of like super long documentaries. This is about 2 hours and like 47 minutes long. It's a pretty thorough documentary. And it says it talks about over 97 films. I think it's probably like they probably show clips from that many. They reference even more, and it's just basically it's kind of like a narrativized documentary where they kind of the narrator kind of talks about film as a whole on like all kind of the broad spectrum. I go from everything from like Us and Black Panther to like the most obscure like Indian like Bollywood. Well, it wouldn't be obscure in India, but like a Bollywood musical or like a Turkish drama or just like all kinds of like world cinema all around, and how it kind of analyzes it from like thematic viewpoints, technological advancements, how it informs our culture, like pretty much every interesting facet of film that I would be interested in, it kind of delves into. And this is the type of movie that I love because I know a lot of movies, and I like will just sit watching this movie and I just find myself taking notes in my phone, like, gotta look that one up, gotta look that one up, because there are just so many movies that like my mind can't physically hold everything, but just like having something like this, like some of the clips I saw from some of these movies, I was like, ooh, that is fascinating. And I like even movies that I have known already, like of course stuff like Us, like I would just see it recontextualized within this movie and how it kind of speaks in like conversation with other movies from other parts of the world. And like it's comforting to know that kind of some of these thematic elements, while we may be like the world may be so big, it kind of like makes you feel like a part of something deeper, because how films are just, they can just kind of communicate with one another and bounce off one another. It's really just exciting for me. So I really appreciated being able to watch this documentary. It's a lot of fun. I think I heard that there might be like a Blu-ray set of this and the first film coming out sometime in the future, which I'm very excited to check out the first one and hopefully on Blu-ray. But if you do want to check out this film for now, this is like a really solid presentation. They source the best like clips they can from from it's, since it's like the last decade or so. There's pretty good quality clips, and it all looks pretty nice for like DVD quality. There are no special features or just a trailer, but just the film itself is just like a wonderful experience. So Music Box Films, they did a really good job with this. They knew who they were speaking to. It's right, speaking my language. But The Story of Film: A New Generation is definitely worth checking out if you consider yourself a cinephile.
Nice. Yeah, I need to see the first one and that one.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping for that set you talked about because that I will definitely be checking that out.
Mhm.
So my next one is also a documentary. So that's a
Ooh.
nice sort of segue. It is Let There Be Drums.
Oh, cool.
And yes, here's the back. And yeah, so I know you in particular love the music documentaries. Did you get to see this one yet?
Not yet. That one, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's great. So I think every kind of great documentary, you have to kind of have like a personal angle or like relationship with the documentary. And the filmmaker's dad is a drummer, and they he spent his childhood with, I believe it was the Grateful Dead, which
Mm.
that's pretty wild. And he has some really interesting like conversations with his dad and with some of the other like drummers from different bands. And I really love that deep sort of interesting connection to it. And of course it does talk about like what it like it's not so much about like what it's more like what it's like to be a drummer from the perspective of like what it's like to be like a family member of somebody that's like always on the road, and like how it affects your family. And so it kind of takes it from that angle and not necessarily like here's the history of drumming.
Yeah.
So uh and I mean they get a lot of great people to talk about like their experience. And I think like that's kind of like the big sort of hook is just these really wonderful candid interviews where like a lot of these guys like talk about like how again like it's like being on the road, being away from your family, just deep
Mhm.
like personal stuff like that. And I will say like it got me a little bit sometimes because like during the holidays like I'm really missing loved ones that are no longer like here, and like my dad in particular. So hearing like a son and dad sort of like thing was pretty
Mhm.
cool. And it so there's no features on this, which is kind of a bummer. I kind of like wish that there would have been maybe like some outtakes or some like additional interviews or something. But yeah,
Mhm.
as it stands now, it's really good. I think maybe like the pacing could have used a little bit of a tightening, but yeah, this was good. It's like I don't want to beat a dead drum about it, but bumps. Anyways.
Uh,
Uh
we're bleeding subscribers now. Thank you.
I was like, you can air guitar, but can you air drum? It's not as
Convinced?
I don't
Convinced?
think it yeah, it's not as cool as air guitar, I guess. But anyways, yeah, this is a fun one. And again, I know we love highlighting documentaries, especially ones that are, not maybe as high profile.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's you just spoke the magic words. It makes me want to go watch that movie because it's hitting all the sweet spots. I'm excited. My next one, little different, a little different. It's from Synapse Films, and it is Creature from Black Lake, which this is a Bigfoot movie, a Sasquatch movie from the '70s, and who doesn't love that? Here's the interior. Let's see. Does it have reversible cover art? It does not. So yeah, it's from 1976, and basically what this is it's in like the swamplands, the Louisiana swamps, where at the beginning of the film there's like these two fishermen on a like a fishing trip, and one of them gets attacked like pulled underneath the water by a Sasquatch, and the other one runs away in terror, and that kind of sets off a chain of events where like these two college kids go down to Louisiana to like work on like this college project where they want to kind of collect like stories about like the Bigfoot legend and just try to like figure out what is going on in this town. And while they are in this town, they get a little bit too close to comfort to this Sasquatch character. So it's kind of like a simple premise. And does it break any new boundaries? No. Is it entertaining? I found it pretty entertaining for what it's trying to do. Some of the characters are just frankly just dumb and just like they're kind of annoying, but then like it's kind of like he's like kind of the dumb comic relief, and then the other one is just kind of like keeping things more grounded and like kind of giving like a better performance, and just it's a decent balance, but there is a lot of dumb stuff in this. And then you have like the typical sheriff who's just like, don't you come into our town and get people riled up and stuff, and then it's just the whole thing. But there are cheesy Sasquatch like effects slash costumes. They're like the tension, like the scenes of like Bigfoot attacks or stuff. It's not really particularly well done. It's kind of like clumsy and just kind of like not too menacing. But once again, it's part of like the charm of this movie. It's kind of like a little clunky, a little clumsy. You can tell that it's just a bunch of people getting in, like going down to the swamps and just like making like the best movie they can. It's better than like a shot on video movie for sure. It has like really good production value and everything. And some of like the ensemble characters, they put in like even some better like colorful townsfolk performances and like the main characters, honestly. But overall, is it like a classic? No. Is it fun? Yes, I enjoyed myself. It's a Bigfoot movie. It's fun. So Synapse Films, they did a really nice job with this. I was trying to do like an announcement article about this Blu-ray, and I was looking for photos, and it is hard to even find a good photo of this movie, like a photo just like still from this movie. It's like almost impossible. This comes from a new 4K transfer of the 35 millimeter negative, and it looks really nice. So I was like, oh, okay, this film can look nice, and it does exist, so that's cool. But it looks really nice. The transfer looks like really clean and crisp. There's not a lot of like damage or anything. The grain is pretty thick, but it's natural. They haven't like tried to like remove the grain, which is nice. I appreciate that. The black levels are fairly deep. They can be like a little like lack detail slightly, but overall for what this film is, I think it's doing a pretty good job. And the audio, it sounds pretty decent too, given its age and probably relatively lacking source material. So overall, AV quality, I think I give it a passing grade. It's really nice. There are a few good features on this. There's a commentary track and a couple a featurette with the director of photography, and then like some radio spots and theatrical trailers. So overall, Synapse Films did a really nice job with this. The audio commentary comes from film historians, so they don't have any people involved with the actual film, but the film historians, they are on this. So if you have like a soft spot for these types of films, I think Synapse Films has done a really nice job with Creature from Black Lake. It is all the cheesy goodness I think you could want from this. Just don't go in expecting a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think anybody was under any delusions of.
Hey, I try to keep it real with everyone.
Yeah, and I think you summed it up perfectly. And I do have like a soft spot for like the cheesy Bigfoot movies, so that one I think is definitely going to be on my list. My next one has a little bit of a misleading title, and which is Christmas in Wolf Creek, and I knew that it wasn't going to be a Christmas version of the movie Wolf Creek, but I was holding out hope in my heart that it was, and it wasn't. But anyways,
I did a double take when I saw it on the spreadsheet. I was like, is this one of those horror movies that Mike is into?
That would have been amazing and a lot better, but oh boy, yeah. So I I know we both really like Christmas movies. I like the cheesier the better. This one was just okay. So the plot is very simple. It's a woman and her new boyfriend are kind of having relationship problems, and they're a runaway reindeer that sort of is set up to be in this Christmas play. Uh, Kind of helps bring them together, and yeah, it's really something. Um, so I recently reviewed this Christmas movie called Christmas with the Campbells, and I thought it was flawed in its own way, but it kind of had that it had a hook that made it at least a little bit more interesting and engaging. And unfortunately, like this movie doesn't really have anything that feels unique, um or there's no like selling point that makes it memorable. Like, to be honest, like I'll probably forget about this movie almost instantly after I'm done talking about it. And I mean that's very harsh. I will say the acting is good. I will say that like it's competently directed. It's just which still
You're
doesn't sound
just
like a compliment, but
you're reaching for things. You're
but yeah, it just doesn't really do anything to really mix up the formula. I also weirdly think that this is like a sequel to another film because the couple, oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went back because this is from Mill Creek, and I was like
Mhm.
looking at their slate of releases for November or whenever this came out, and I saw like right above it was like meeting at Wolf Creek or whatever. Now it's like
Uh
Christmas in Wolf Creek.
so this is the second in maybe like the Wolf Creek franchise?
um, Maybe we'll get Valentine's Day at Wolf Creek, or I don't know.
Or Wolf Creek in the Outback, which is actually the, horror
Yeah.
movie thing. But yeah, because it was interesting because I didn't realize that, and they like reference this past event, which I'm assuming takes place in the first film. Um so I don't know, maybe I was missing the nuances in this being like a sequel, but um it's fine. I mean, I feel like there's enough sort of hokey, small town, all shucks stuff going on that it made it at least somewhat watchable. I don't know. It just was. It's fine. I didn't hate watching it, but it's very kind of forgettable.
Yeah. The only thing I looked up that movie whenever, like I said, you added it to the spreadsheet. I believe it stars. I'm probably gonna butcher his name, but I think his name is Tim Rosen,
Hmm.
who I know because I watched this Canadian like teen show with my wife called Instant Star, and he was on that. And he's like a Canadian dude I see pop up in a lot of things. And actually, just like a to tie it back into GVN, our colleague Tia Fabi, she interviewed him earlier this year, so we can link that
Right.
in the description. I don't remember what project he was promoting. I think it was something on Sci-Fi. But yeah, he works. So like, uh,
Yeah, like he actually had a pretty substantial role, at least mostly in the first season of Schitt's Creek, but like he's
that's
still kind of throughout the series, but like not as much. Like he's really heavily featured in the first and second, maybe probably mostly the second season, and then they sort of taper his storyline off. But I love Schitt's Creek.
yeah. This is no Shit's Creek. It probably would have been better if it was Shit's Creek. My next film is I have a pair from Scorpion releasing. This is the first of that, and this is Night Visitor.
Mm.
And this is quite an interesting movie. It is very much like a, a bunch of other movies. So this, how did I want to describe this? This has like elements of kind of like Rear Window, but with a little bit of like Satanic Panic kind of. So like Rear Window, Fright Night, kind of Satanic Panic stuff. So how this what this movie is. This is at the beginning of the movie. There is like kind of like a killing, like a murder spree that has been currently happening, where there is a killer targeting prostitutes, and this kind of goes to kind of like the weird tone of this movie, which I'll kind of get into. It then kind of focuses on like a young high school student, and who is kind of like not the most reliable student. He's kind of like not the most beloved by his teachers, and he kind of gets into a boy who cried wolf situation when one of his new neighbor moves in, and it's almost kind of like turns into like a teen sex comedy where you're like, oh, is this young guy gonna hook up with his next door neighbor? She happens to be a prostitute, and he, while like spying on her one night, he sees that she gets killed in her house. But who is doing the killing? Of course, his social studies teacher. But since he's like the boy who cried wolf, whenever he tries to accuse his teacher, he's not exactly believed, and like they think that he might be like making it up and blah blah blah. So this kind of plays out in interesting ways because it's tonally very unbalanced. And from what I read from the like IMDb trivia, it seems like this movie was very heavily watered down. Like I think if this would have like went out how it was written in the original script, it probably would have gotten an NC-17 because it was supposed to be much more like much more like brutal killings, much more nudity and like sacrificial stuff. There's a little bit of nudity and there are still some killings, but it's very tame compared to like especially a lot of what we watch. But it's decent, but it's just very tonally unbalanced because like you see something like Fright Night and it's almost like masterful how that comes together where it's like very well paced, like the acting's really great. It kind of builds very nicely, like tension throughout. And this is not that. Throughout, you do like follow the teacher and like his kind of inept brother, who are kind of like these like burgeoning Satanists and are performing all these killings, but you never really get super invested in them as like villains, as antagonists. And then the lead guy, he's kind of like he's not. I guess the best word would be he's kind of bland. You don't really care about like if he's believed or not. The most interesting part of this movie is Elliot Gould plays like a like alcoholic detective who is kind of like he kind of functioned in the Fright Night scenario as what's his name who plays the TV host who they
oh yeah, Roddy McDowall.
Roddy, yeah, he kind of functioned in the Roddy McDowall, like he's trying to help this young kid be believed in his quest. Overall, it's entertaining. I feel like I over-explained this movie. There's just a lot of weird elements going in this movie, and like I didn't know what to expect. But this is from like the '80s. It's '89. I do feel like someone just watched Fright Night and wanted to like do that, but with Satanists. But it's kind of a mess, but it's entertaining. So I think it's worth a watch if you're very much into this genre. If you're more of like a casual fan, I probably this is not my first stop in this genre. It is very, very messy and like all over the place. But I was entertained. I guess I'm an easy mark sometime. I don't know. This does come from a 2019 HD master that looks really nice. I think it looks very strong. So I guess I'm not sure what the source was at that time when it was remastered, but it looks really good for this release. This does come with some featurettes, like some interviews with some of the crew members and everything. And so overall, light recommendation for genre fans. Everyone else, like I would caution, like it's very dumb and very convoluted. So take and do that with what you will.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I definitely love and am fascinated with the 80s like satanic panic. Like so that sounds like an interesting hook. And I like messy, cheesy, weird movies, so I'll probably end up checking that out.
For sure.
And maybe blaming you, we'll see.
I mean, I told you it's not good.
um so gosh, I wish this next title was as fun to talk about, but it kind of maybe borderline angry. Um and that is The Cure, and it's not the band. Geez, I wish it would have been, but there's the back. So this is from Mill Creek. This is their like retro rewind collection. So this is the main cover and the back. No reversible art, but there's the disc. So okay, there's a lot to unpack, but I'll try to go through it briefly and not like get kind of irate about it. So this film is about a kid who has AIDS from a blood transfusion. Um, and then Brad Renfro's character is basically befriends him, and yeah, so I think so they go on this kind of journey because they think that there's a cure for AIDS, and they make this like they very much do like a Huck Finn, like literally down the rapids to get to this like magical cure that we of course know was not a thing. So okay, this movie I think is well-meaning, but it's very tone deaf.
Yeah,
And
sounds
it's
like
got
it.
a lot of problems. So the first 10 minutes, 10 15 minutes of this movie, I literally lost count of how many homophobic slurs are just rapid fire throughout, from the bullies to like Renfro's character. And there's a moment when it seemed like they were gonna like take that and use that as like a teachable moment to like not be homophobic and shitty. Where the kid, was it Joseph Mazzello?
Yes.
Um which I actually talked about, who was in Shadowlands actually.
Oh yeah.
And I mean he's probably most known for Jurassic Park, but anyways, his character's like, why are you saying that? Like, most of the people that are gay were really nice to me in the hospital and stuff. And that's, like, it kind of shuts him down a little bit on it, but like it doesn't take it far enough to justify like all of that like putridness that they sort of throw at you in the first like 15 minutes. I mean, literally, I am not kidding when it's probably like 10 or 15 or 20 like instances of like slurs like that.
Mhm.
So that was a lot. But yeah, the movie it's just very overwrought. It's very emotionally cheesy and manipulative. Yeah, it really was. I get what the director was trying to do. Interestingly enough, the director of this was actually the main star of the original, in Children of the Corn,
Oh.
Peter Horton. So
Hmm.
that's a weird connection.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get what he was going for. It does kind of give you like a perspective of like somebody living with AIDS, and it could be, somebody that got it from a blood transfusion. But again, it just does not understand the nuances, and um I don't know how I want to put it. It's just tone deaf, I just think is like the best way to put it. So it's not a good movie. It's just very like, I think the only thing that's really salvageable about this movie is like they really do a good job of like showing these friends and like how they bond. Brad Renfro, I think, is one of the most underrated actors. I think it was so tragic what happened to him, but like he was kind of the main selling point for why I wanted to check this movie out. But it's not very good. The transfer is Actually pretty decent. I know Mill Creek has very hit or miss when it comes to that, but I believe that this was this is licensed from Universal, so I'm thinking maybe it comes from a master from them. But overall it's flawed, but like it's certainly not like I've seen much worse from some Mill Creek titles. So for what it's worth, it does look fine.
Okay, so I will probably not make that a priority viewing if it
Yeah.
makes you angry. So, oh boy. My next film, it did not make me angry. It was just another you know what you're getting into type situation. Once again, from Scorpion Releasing, this is Shredder,
Mm.
which is a very cheesy 2001 direct to video horror movie, and it's basically it takes a few odd turns, but like they don't really develop certain things. But so this is basically it's a snowbound horror movie. At the beginning of the film, you see kind of like a masked like skier who is who right off the bat there's someone like going down a mountain and they decapitate this person. So right off the bat you're like, okay, cool, cheesy, like head rolling
Mhm.
down snow embankment, cool, that's fine. Then it just kind of turns into like a group of friends are going up to a cabin where it's like been kind of condemned because they don't know this at the beginning, but there's been like a murder there in the cabin at the first place. But the girl who's kind of leading the charge, her father is planning to possibly like purchase this like kind of land slash development and like refurbish it and stuff. So she's like, she's entitled and like, I'm going to take my friends and party at this before things go down. Against the better like the wishes of the townspeople who are just basically like, leave us alone, don't go up there, it's dangerous. So of course killings ensue. Like each of them once they get there, like the characters are very much like stock characters. They're not very well developed. They're very like very poor to atrocious acting throughout, and it's I've I'm trying to like. There's a lot of different ways in which this movie kind of fails, like in different aspects. There are entertaining moments, like some of the kills are interesting, but like they don't really go far enough on the violence to make it like super enjoyable on that front. If you're like, they're very inconsistent with their nudity as well. Like the at the beginning of the film, you're like, okay, like you see a girl in a shower, you don't see anything really, and then like her boyfriend like bursts in on her and like as like a jokey reveal, like, oh, it's just her boyfriend or whatever. You don't see anything, and you're like, okay, that's fine. And then you see like once again later she's doing something where it's like, okay, a normal movie would show her like naked, it doesn't. But then like later, like her friend, she like very blatantly just dances around naked, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this it just seems very blatant that this woman had like a no nudity clause in her
Yeah.
contract. And so like, and then just the acting's not great, the characterization's not good. It's just, and then there's also there are supernatural elements kind of like hinted
Hmm.
at, like, oh, like you like there's a belief that like the spirits of the victims of this like the mountain are trying to protect people or warn people off, but then that's just kind of abandoned and never mentioned again. And I'm like, why did you say that? What is going on? Why did you like hint at possible supernatural stuff? But uh, where I kind of hesitantly like thought the Night Visitor was like fun enough, this just kind of is just kind of like poor. Like I there were some fun moments, but overall I don't think it's really worth like much time invested unless you're just really into direct to video like early 2000s horror movies that you know are just going to be terrible, and you just want to get a group of friends together to just kind of laugh at its like idiotic plot, performances, all that. So that is what this movie is. So this does have a kind of a brief interview. I think it's like a 10 or 12-minute interview with the actress, the one with, I believe, with the no nudity clause. She comes to discuss her. I haven't watched it all yet, so maybe she'll talk about it in the interview. This does have a commentary track and some outtakes, so there does have some nice special features if you're interested in this. But once again, not a great movie. So Shredder, great cover art, but the actual movie itself is just kind of
Yeah.
not great.
I too have a no nudity clause on the show, which is strictly enforced, of course. Yeah, so the next title that I'm going to talk about is one that I was really excited for the upgrade. I had this on DVD, which I will get to because I was actually able to kind of compare. But that is Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Oh yeah.
This is the quintessential, we came up with the poster. Now, how do we reverse engineer to get there? So here, so the same extra that was on the DVD has been ported over. It's a really excellent commentary track that I've actually listened to like several times. It's really good. Yeah, so this is when you talk about like the Taj Mahal of cheesy atomic age 50s movies with some gender politics. This is like right up there. It's a lot of fun. It kind of gives you everything you kind of want from a movie of this era. It's bad acting, cheesy effects. The so there's like this spaceship at the beginning, which is part wire effect, part like I guess it's like a not matte painting, but like it's just kind of like superimposed into the film. But this is so clear that you can actually see the strings on the spaceship at the beginning. It's great. So this basically is sort of like it almost starts almost like if you took out the sort of opening with the spaceship, it kind of feels almost like a noir where like a cheating husband is plotting with his girlfriend to drive this woman insane so he can like get a hold of her fortune. But then they think she's crazy because she sees a spaceman in the desert, and it's all just padding to really get to the rampage scene at the end. It's just amazing. So it's a fun movie. It's very breezy. It's only 66 minutes long, I think. So it clips right along. Again, I mean, the giant spaceman is kind of filler for what we really want, which is just we want the giant woman rampaging. And
Yeah.
that does not disappoint. So yeah, as I said, at the beginning of this, I do have the DVD, so I immediately watched a little bit of that right after watching this new one, and it's like almost night and day. Like it is really gorgeous looking. So like what you notice right away is in the DVD, it's a lot darker. You have like temperature fluctuations. You have a lot, not a lot, but you have some like artifacts, some like snow effects that are a little bit distracting. Not here. This looks cleaned up. It's beautiful. I mean, I don't think that the DVD necessarily looked terrible, but like this is like almost night and day. So I mean, Warner Archive like sets the bar so high and they never disappoint. And if you have the DVD and you are a fan and you I mean, I assume everybody has a Blu-ray player at this point, but like you want to upgrade this. It is really fantastic looking. Again, the DVD wasn't horrible looking, but this is just so much better. It's clearer. There's really no artifacts like to be found whatsoever, and it's just probably the best this will ever look. It's really like stunning. So it's a fun movie. I'm so glad that they put this out on Blu-ray, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I finally watched this one after hearing about it after all these years, and I did have fun with like the rampaging woman aspects of it. I was a little bit irritated with the gender politics, even aside from the husband who is supposed to be toxic. Like some of the people are trying to like help the wife before she becomes a 50-foot woman. I was just like, ooh, some of the things you're saying, like I know it's a product of the time, but I was just like, ugh, that's
Yeah.
that's rough. But overall, I did enjoy the movie. But there's some very dated things they say. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. But
Yeah.
it's the time period.
Yeah, but you would definitely agree that like it all builds to like what you are promised in the
Yeah,
poster. I mean,
yeah,
that is
yeah.
like
It delivers on its title.
but I mean, and yeah, I think like that is like far and away like the best part of this movie. But I mean, it is cheesy enough to be fun, and I mean, I'm kind of glad that it never feels like it outstays its welcome. So,
Oh, absolutely, I agree. Um, Next up, I am going for a new 88 Films release, and this is Blood and Diamonds,
mm,
which it feels like ever since 88 Films has come to the US, almost exclusively it's been like Japanese or like Hong Kong cinema. So it's interesting to like step away from that just a little bit and go to Italian cinema. So here is the underneath. It does have reversible cover art. So you have this here. And as typical with 88 Films, you do have like a fold out poster and everything. So let me fold out the poster. So one side here, and the other slipcover art here. And then we have this booklet. So got nice essays and all that good stuff. So yeah, this is a really nice package for this release. So the film itself, it is an Italian like crime kind of yeah, crime thriller. And it's about a guy who has just like recently got out of jail. I believe he was in there for 5 years. And when he gets out of jail, he is like looking to kind of get retribution on some people he feels have like landed him in there, and he's also trying to get this stash of diamonds that are worth a ton of money that he feels that he is basically owed. So there's a lot of an interesting dynamic of just this guy trying to get his life back on track, kind of get over some of like being betrayed in the past, and just it's kind of that kind of like standard kind of plot. And it's handled pretty well. I was pretty engaged throughout the whole thing. It has some pretty like visceral scenes of violence. It's pretty well paced. I was never really too bored or anything or checking my watch. And like the performances are pretty solid. There is someone on here. I forgot. Let me see. Martin Balsam is in this movie, who is
mm.
like in 12 Angry Men, All the President's Men, and a bunch of like big movies. So this is one of those scenarios where like there was a mixture of like one like some characters were speaking English, some were speaking Italian, and you just have to pick kind of which track you want to listen to. So there's like an Italian track and an English dub, depending on what you want, because there was no like one uniform dub, because that's just how it was at that time. And so there's some Italian actors, there's some English speaking actors. They're all mixed together. Overall, I think it sounds really nice. The restoration, it looks pretty good. It's a 4K transfer from the negative. Um, I would want to hear from kind of people who know this title a little bit better. I do think it has kind of like a more yellow push that I know certain European like transfer houses sometimes like put on transfers that I know that don't always look the best. I didn't think it was like oppressive here, but I don't know if it's inherent to the original photography or if it's something that maybe the restoration lab kind of like put like a color tint over it a little bit because it was a little bit yellowish. But like as far as like the print quality, it looked really nice. There wasn't a lot of like damage or anything, and like everything else resolved well. I just have some questions about the color temperature that this runs at. So this does have a commentary track, and it has a documentary on the director. The director is Fernando De Leo. It has a direct documentary on him that is 97 minutes long. So that's pretty substantial. It's like as like some people might find that as intriguing as the feature film itself. There's also an additional 20-minute featurette about the movie, and like some like trailers and all that stuff. So this is a really nice package. As you can tell, it's like a really nice slipcover, and you got the poster, a booklet, really great release. So I was entertained by the movie. I've been getting a lot of my Italian crime fix from Arrow this year, but I was glad to see 88 Films bring this into my life. They've done a really good job with some of their like Shaw Brothers movies, so I'm glad that they're going to like their Italian collection here. So I look forward to seeing more of that in the future too.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds interesting. So my next title is actually one that I had never heard of, similar to the other Paul Newman film Twilight, and I'm kind of obsessed with now. It's called Nobody's Fool, and there's a lot to unpack here, but like let's just check this out first. And slipcover. I know we say this a lot, but if you want the slipcover version, you want to get it like pretty quickly. There's the inside. So yeah, first of all, have you seen this movie?
No, I have not.
All right, it is wild. So all right, I was trying to think about the best way to sort of articulate this. And the only thing I can think of is it kind of feels like a movie for old timers, not dissimilar to like Grumpy Old Men. Yet there's a lot of explicit material just kind of dumped in, which makes it feel tonally very strange. So this is much like Let There Be Drums, this is a ultimately a story about a father and son. In this case, Newman's character kind of abandoned his family, and now he's, in his old age, he's trying to reconcile with the past, and he's trying to reconnect with his son, who's played by was it Dylan Walsh, I think, who's like a baby in this. He's maybe in his 20s or 30s. It's like weird seeing like a young him, because I'm kind of used to seeing like him in like Nip Tuck and stuff. But anyways, but there's also like this weird subplot with like him renting a room from like Jessica Tandy, and Bruce Willis is in it for some reason, which is kind of weird. There is some inexplicable nudity, again, that just feels very weird, when you think about how this seems more like a PG-13 kind of family film. So there's that.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it is the only movie that I've ever seen with a heartwarming scene where a boy brings back an old man's leg, which is not played for laughs. But to give you some context, a couple scenes earlier, this old man lost his leg in a game of strip poker.
That classic tale.
A tale as old as time, but
yeah,
it's so surreal because it's like that scene in particular is just played for like just as earnestly as you possibly could of this kid conquering his fears and taking this leg to this old man that lost it in strip poker.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's I'm so fascinated by this movie just because of how inexplicable it is. And yeah, it has a like I mentioned some of the other cast, but this has a really young was it Meg? Yeah, Meg. I'm sorry. Someone said Meg Ryan. Melanie Griffith is in this.
Oh yeah.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman has a tiny role as like a local police officer that gets into some shenanigans. I will say, I'll just say, but yeah, it's. I can't say it's a good movie, but I was completely beguiled by it. It was just so weird, and I almost just wholeheartedly recommend it. Just if you want like a family film that just has some R-rated stuff dumped in, and it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't not work, but it's just tonally, it's just very strange. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's a really interesting like discovery. I think I probably would end up watching it again. So, and it looks really nice. This comes from a new 4K scan. Sometimes it will say if it was scanned from like or like supervised by a cinematographer. That's not the case here, but it looks really nice. I mean, this is a nice, warm, vibrant film. So like the colors and the overall like color palette really like reflects that nicely here. So looks great, sounds great. I mean, Kino always crushes it. I really enjoyed this release. Again, I just thought it was so wonderfully weird. I and again, like what's kind of cool is there is some features of like cast talking about it, a commentary track. So that was really fun to sort of dig into as well. So I highly recommend this title.
Great. I like I said, I have not seen that movie, but I'm very interested in it. I especially later career Paul Newman is so fascinating. I just want to see what's going on with this movie. So definitely
Yeah.
gonna check that out soon. My final title, it is one from 1994 from director Doug McHenry, and that is Jason's Lyric,
Mm.
which stars Alan Payne, Jada Pinkett, before she was Jada Pinkett Smith, Bokeem Woodbine, and a lot of interesting people kind of show up here and there. So this movie, I will say it's good, but it's a little bit overly kind of ambitious in like all the stories it tries to tell. One story it tries to tell is like a young like a kind of like 20-year-old guy wrestling with the trauma of his past from having he grew up with a father who was like unwell, played by Forrest Whitaker, who had like come back from the war, kind of changed. He obviously suffered from PTSD, and he was abusive to his mom. And then one night, whenever he's beating up on his mom, he ends up grabbing a gun and killing his father. So it's like that's one storyline where he's like kind of reckoning with that past. Another past is like his brother, who kind of obviously grew up in the same household as him. He has grown up and he is like taking a path of like crime. So he is just freshly gotten out of prison. That he is played by Bokeem Woodbine, who I always really love, and he does a really good job of making you kind of exasperated because you see where like you want him to be like a better version of himself, but he kind of keeps falling back on that kind of life of crime mentality where he just kind of keeps like any opportunity that he gets that comes his way, he finds a way to kind of let's like slip back into like kind of criminal stuff. So it's like this guy trying to like keep his nose clean, but then like he's getting into crime, and his brother is kind of like trying to like help him out of that. The third thing that this movie is trying to deal with is young love. So it's like this main character is dealing with this other stuff. It's also like has met Jada Pinkett and like her character and like them falling in love, and which is probably my favorite aspect of the movie. It's a really nice portrayal of like falling in love and like learning about like each other's passions and what kind of like sharing yourself with one another. And it's just a really beautiful kind of like love story that develops pretty nicely. And like the leads have really nice chemistry together, and you can see how they both feel kind of trapped in this small town, and they want better for themselves. Like especially the Jada Pinkett character, like one of her like pastimes is just going to this hill and watching the buses depart from the bus station and like wondering where are they going. So just like kind of dreaming of a life bigger than what she has. So all of these things are kind of working in tandem with one another, and while each of them are kind of, they're very engrossing and like very well done, and I think this is really well directed. It kind of like feels just slightly overstuffed, and then you sometimes get a little bit of like tonal inequality between the three storylines. Overall, it is really good, and I really appreciate it. And then you do see like kind of some like appearances from like a young Eddie Griffin, a young, I believe I'm not mixing this up with Panther. I think there's a young Chris Rock in this movie, which I find interesting. And there's just a lot of really like great. This is a like a really great example of like black cinema, because I know the director of this, like he went on to direct like some like kind of like important, or like has been involved with some important black movies. Like I think before this was involved with New Jack City. He went to direct this movie called Kingdom Come with LL Cool J. And then a lot of the people in this movie are just like really like seminal figures in like kind of like the early like the 90s like black cinema. So uh as like a dramatic work, there are some flaws to it. I do think it probably could have been tightened up, or just like maybe just kind of like some of the storylines, maybe like one of them excised because it seemed a little bit ambitious. But overall, I did really enjoy the movie. I thought it was very impactful. There's unfortunately no special features besides a trailer. This is one especially, even like just from a film historian, I would have loved to heard more about the how this movie came together and just like kind of its history. But the film looks pretty nice. It's not noted as being from a new transfer, but the master that they're working with seems pretty solid, all things considered. Sounds really nice. Like I said, it's from '94, so everything is in pretty solid quality. And yeah, if you're a fan of these performers, or if you just want like, if you're into like '90s black cinema, Jason's Lyric is a solid addition, even if it is slightly flawed.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And as soon as you said Jada, I was like, you need to keep her name out of your mouth.
I think it's okay
No,
if she's in movies. I think it's okay.
well, you better watch your back, is all I'm saying. So, no, that sounds really interesting. Like, especially when you were saying like how there's a lot of really interesting creative people involved in that. It definitely seems like it's sort of like worth it just to see all of the people kind of involved. But yeah, that's all the titles that we have to yep, we're all out. Sorry. But the good thing is we do this every week, so you want to be sure to be subscribed. Certainly likes and commenting below is always greatly appreciated. And as always, thanks for hanging out with us.